And finally, no foray into the evil scientists of the galaxy would be complete without a look at Dr. Silo, the mortal man who tried to live forever. In his early career, Silo became a specialist in cybernetics, which, as you can tell from the other entries on this list, can be a bit of a red flag. During this time, Silo convinced himself that technology was superior to humanity. His work focused on creating new forms of life through the use of cybernetic augmentation, grafting alien body parts onto droids in the process, much like the good Dr. Gore did. But Silo didn't stop at experimenting on others. He himself became his most prized experiment of all. He mapped out his memories, his personality, and his reasoning procedures, then uploaded it all into a computer system. With his self essentially saved in a database, Silo could grow an infinite number of cybernetically augmented bodies, then download his mind into them to create a perfect copy of himself. That way, Silo could live forever. And Silo's bodies died a lot. By the Battle of Yavin, he was on body number 4, known as Silo 4. Keep in mind, these bodies didn't share a memory bank. Anything the body experienced that wasn't uploaded into the system would be lost forever after the body's death, so none of the Silo bodies ever had to deal with trauma. They did, however, share a common logic pattern, so by waking up, they could deduce something had happened to the previous Silo and act accordingly. Much of this work on cybernetics was done under the patronage of Astartes of Selenon during the Clone Wars. After the declaration of a new order, Silo was brought on by Darth Sidious to work on something of critical importance, saving the life of Anakin Skywalker. Silo and the other scientists brought on for the project were able to save the newly minted Darth Vader's life by replacing his lost limbs with cybernetics and entombing him in a suit of mechanical armor which had built-in life support. Silo and his team had done such good work that Sidious kept them on, allowing them to work essentially outside the boundaries of the law. With full reign to do as he pleased and a generous budget, Silo continued his research into genetic enhancements, melding technology into living flesh. Taking inspiration from General Grievous, he engineered many of his subjects to be able to wield lightsabers with the same efficacy as a Jedi or Sith, but without the need of the Force. Another one of his experiments was Toulon, a fellow scientist whose genius work had contributed to projects such as the Death Star and the Tarkin Initiative. For her, Silo enhanced her cerebellum, connecting her brain to several droids, which she could command with a mere thought. Toulon had already been a genius, Silo reasoned, but after his augmentation, she became even smarter. When it came to non-sentient experiments, Silo was equally ruthless. He created a cyber animation project that optimized the Enforcers. This AI enhanced their animalistic urges while removing any trace of a personality or the ability to feel pain. Instead, the subject would be made to feel only what Silo programmed it to feel. He tested this AI on sentience, but he was hoping to use it on animals too. While working for the Empire, Silo got to make friends with several other messed up people, such as Professor Thlu Rai, who'd done work on the Death Star. Thanks to the Professor's help, Silo was able to create a personal fleet of cybernetically enhanced spacefaring creatures that were, for all intents and purposes, a number of Purgil that he turned into a research base. He also created a defense fleet to protect said organic bases. With his successful projects, Silo slowly grew his influence and began pushing for his creations to be deployed on a greater scale, even going so far as to imply that they could replace Darth Vader. But Silo should have known better. His growing influence put a massive target on his back. The Emperor wanted him gone. However, with the Death Star still under construction and Silo holding significant sway in the scientist's body, Palpatine had to bide his time, worried that taking Silo out would disrupt the numerous projects they were working on. That all changed after the destruction of the Death Star. With this and Vader's other recent failures, Sidious began actually considering Silo's plan to replace the Sith Lord. Instead of killing Silo as planned, the Emperor sent Vader out on a few missions to prove his worth, while he himself summoned Silo to Coruscant to discuss their options. The deal they struck was simple. Silo would pick his most promising subject, and if it won against Vader, Sidious would take it as his new right hand. That said, what Silo didn't know was that Sidious was hedging his bets. Either Silo succeeded and got him a better replacement for Vader, or he failed and Sidious would be able to execute him for treason without fearing the reaction of his fellow scientists. Vader, meanwhile, who had run into Silo on his way out, became suspicious of the scientist and hired a bounty hunter to find him. If you've seen our video on Dr. Aphra, you'll remember the rest of that story. Bounty hunter Black Chrysanthemum, Aphra, and their droids were able to capture Silo 4, find the location of his organic research base, and destroy it after a challenging operation. What we didn't cover in that video was what happened aboard the research base when Vader disappeared for a short time. While Aphra and her team focused on destroying the base, Vader entered the dojo and engaged Silo 5 in a duel. Silo, however, pitted his experiments against the Sith Lord. Before the two sides could exchange blows, Darth Sidious himself arrived and changed the playing field. The Dark Lord of the Sith demanded that Silo demonstrate the merits of his creations by dueling Darth Vader to the death. The fight was inconclusive, however, when some of Silo's experiments refused to fight. The Sith departed, and Silo was sent to work under Grand General Cassio Taga, who sent him to Shu Torron, serving under Darth Vader. By then, Silo was beginning to lose it. Vader's recent victories and his own creation's failure to destroy the Sith Lord were starting to eat away at his ego. Eager to prove his superiority, Silo decided to betray the Empire. All he wanted to see was Vader dead, and so, on Shu Torron, he reached out to the Rebel Alliance, betraying Vader's position so they could take him out. When the trap failed, however, Vader traced the betrayal back to Silo, forcing him to flee for his life. The scientist had played right into Darth Sidious's hands. By betraying the Empire, Palpatine could now execute Silo without risking the negative reaction of the scientists under him, and so he wasted no time in ordering Vader to carry out the execution. Vader promptly tracked Silo and his fleet down to the Crushank Nebulae, where the two sides engaged in a fierce space battle. Despite some initial losses, Vader was able to board Silo's flagship just before he escaped to hyperspace bound for Kuat. Once aboard, Vader began killing his way through Silo's subjects, heading for the bridge. But Silo had a plan. He had chosen Kuat for a very specific reason. Resting in orbit above the planet was none other than the Executor, the Emperor's personal flagship. After activating his own ship's self-destruct functions, Silo escaped aboard an escape pod and boarded the Executor. His plan was simple: board the Star Destroyer, ram his own destroyed ship into the hull, take the Emperor prisoner, and make off into the sunset. But he hadn't counted on Vader surviving. Despite Silo's ship impaling the Executor's hull, Vader not only survived, but boarded the flagship. Now trapped on the Executor's bridge, with a vengeful Sith Lord slicing his way through the ship toward him, Silo split his forces in two. One was sent to take the Emperor prisoner, while the other half was posted at the bridge, hoping to stop Vader from reaching him. Obviously, none of these experiments stood a chance against Vader. The Sith Lord soon reached the bridge and was ready to cut the scientists down when he pulled out the ace in his sleeve, a small device that could disable Vader's cybernetics. But Vader wasn't defeated. Through willpower alone, he made his body move, grasped his lightsaber, and cut Silo 5 down. Somewhere else, Silo 6 opened his eyes and planned an escape. He didn't make it. Darth Vader was soon on his heel, boarding his whale ship and cutting his way through Silo's forces. This included all of Silo's clone bodies, which all woke up to try and take him down. After finally reaching Silo 6, he and Vader exchanged several taunts. The scientist maniacally claimed that he'd transcended nature itself and conquered the Force, devising a way to live forever. In response, Vader used the mind trick to send the whale ship into a literal star, vaporizing Silo 6 and every single Silo body on board, finally putting an end to the mad scientist once and for all. In many ways, Silo wasn't special. Neither his goals nor the technology and techniques he employed were unique. What set him apart, however, was his sheer ambition. Where other mad scientists failed to make a name for themselves, Silo thought of the bigger picture. He played Imperial office politics so well that even the Emperor couldn't have him executed at will, and he certainly gave Vader a run for his money, even if he never really posed a threat to the Sith. Though Silo was ultimately unsuccessful, his legacy would live on to cause misery for billions of people.